Hi, my name is Carl Valeri, the host of the Stuck Mic AvCast, and are you looking for a thrilling aviation adventure without leaving your living room? An amazing aviation wordsmith and pilot, Nathan Van Coops, is joining us today. He was on an episode 244, and his passion for aviation shines both in his writing and his life as a pilot and a mechanic. Nate Van Coops is an amazing author, and I'm sure you're going to love listening to him about his next thrilling adventure. It's been like 4 years, and we are so excited to have him on. Hey, before we get started, though, I know a lot of people like to listen to the beginning of this to find out about the free scholarships guide. Well, this podcast today is sponsored by Stratus Financial, where dreams take flight. Stratus Financial offers loans for pilot training, and they understand your needs because they are pilots. You can find out more at https:/stratus.finance. As a sponsor of this podcast, Stratus Financial is giving away scholarships guides, and you can get yours for free again using that coupon code STRATUS. You know, it's real easy to find out that scholarships guide and where to find that. It's actually at stuckmicavcast.com/free or aviationcareerspodcast.com/free. Again, whether you're financing your dream of flying or simplifying the process by taking care of your student loans, they're efficient, hassle-free funding can connect you to a life of your dreams of becoming a professional pilot sooner than you ever thought possible. To find out more, again, stratus.finance. Use that coupon code STRATUS to get a free scholarships guide. And those free scholarships guide will actually help you get your ratings if you're looking to get into like seaplane ratings and instrument ratings, that type of thing. It doesn't have to be for a career, but Stratus does. They specifically are a company that helps lots of people get into this career in aviation through their financing. Well, anyway, let's get on with the cruise flight. Well, today we have, again, Nate Van Coops. He's an author, pilot, mechanic, aviation business owner, and many other things. And it's a pleasure to talk to him today. Nate, it is so wonderful to have you back on the show.
I really appreciate the invite back and looking forward to talking with you guys again. It's always a lot of fun.
It sure is. Well, joining us today also is Russ Rosleski, and he's going to tell us a little bit about how he actually met you. But one of the things I want to do before we get started, Russ, is when I looked at this book and I started reading, you ever heard the term "you had me at hello"?
Right.
I know. Russ, he had me at hello, and I got to read this first paragraph out of the book. It starts with, "They say it takes a life of virtue to unlock the gates of heaven, but a small plane will carry even a tarnished soul to the Bahamas. As substitute paradises went, I knew none better." And that is so amazing. It just kind of reminds me of my previous life when I was flying around the Bahamas and living down there. And I just, that kind of had me at the first paragraph at hello. And I know, Russ, he had you at hello, but it went way back before that paragraph that I just read.
That's right. I think it's a pretty interesting story. So any listener of this podcast who's been listening more than about 2 episodes know that I do read a lot. I really love to read. And all different genres, history and fiction and everything. And one of my favorite types of book is time travel stories. And so I discovered this one called In Times Like These. And it's just a book by some guy. I didn't know anything about this author. And I read the book, and about 3/4 of the way through, this is not a spoiler alert, I don't think, there's a scene where the protagonist has to get up high, and he finds out about Discovery flights at the local airport and gets this Discovery flight so he can get some altitude for the thing he's doing. Okay, he needs some altitude. Well, the author goes into way more detail on this, I think Cessna 172 or something, than a normal author would, and uses way too accurate of terms, talking about magnetos and, the mixture control and this kind of stuff. I'm like, come on. This guy must be a pilot. So I went on the FAA's Airman database, typed in the author's name, Nathan Van Coops, and what do you know? He's a pilot, mechanic, and a bunch of other things. So that was back in 2020, and so I kind of sent him an email. He had a webpage, as most authors do, and I sent him an email, and that's what kind of started this whole thing of this whole conversation. That's why we got him on the original podcast. So once again, Nate, thank you very much for coming along and for certainly writing so many books I've enjoyed over the years.
I appreciate having you as a reader, and I'm glad I hooked you in with some authenticity there.
That's what
I think it's largely we as pilots. I think when we're reading anything or watching any films that have to do with aviation, we're always a little bit cringing, waiting for the thing that they're going to get wrong, because Hollywood especially almost always does something inaccurate, and then it just kind of sticks in your head as a pilot.
It's true, and I'm sure that doctors feel the same way, lawyers feel the same way, and everything. But now, I will say, the book was not about aviation, that I'm talking about, and most of Nate's books aren't aviation specific books. I mean, I do read a lot of those, and there are a whole series of books about fiction books of some hijacker of an airplane or some event or whatever, and the whole thing takes place on the airplane, right? Well, these are not like that. Nate works aviation into his books sometimes, some not because it's not appropriate to the setting, but if it's appropriate, he'll kind of work aviation in. And like I was just mentioned, the aviation parts are very accurate. You won't be cringing about the capabilities of the airplanes involved.
I really kind of made a deliberate shift in career recently because of that, because of the the first 10 years of writing. I have maybe 12 or so books out that were primarily about time travel, which is what you read and how you found me. But so the new series, I decided, I've had this 25-year career in aviation, and I've been writing for 10 years. Why have I never deliberately crossed the two and said, why don't I write an aviation fiction thriller? So for this new series, Tropic Angel and Tropic Descent are the first two books of the series. And it was very much a focus choice this time to be like, you know what, I am going to write an aviation book. I'm going to market this as an aviation book, and it's going to have a pilot who is a mechanic who will also get into adventures, mysteries, and thrillers, but there will always be an aviation element. And so that was a big shift for me to, instead of just sort of dabble in aviation in my fiction, to really shift gears and say, you know what, I'm going to be a aviation fiction writer. And it was that's why I kind of just barely differentiated the names. So Nathan Van Coops writes science fiction and time travel. Nate Van Coops, my super not so secret pen name, writes the aviation mystery thrillers. So I think people will figure it out. But I think it was important to tell Amazon and everyone else that they were two separate series.
So that does split them up functionally within the Amazon world then? Okay.
It does, yeah. So the author Nate Van Coops and the author Nathan Van Coops are two different people on Amazon. So if you don't see if you're looking at one and you don't see all the books you want, you got to go look at the other one.
Very good.
But yeah, the aviation stuff, the new series is under Nate Van Coops.
And that's more of now when you talk about aviation, it seems also there's another crossover here, another genre, which is, to be honest with you, that's how I found out about your book. I'm into tropical authors, and you actually are in that tropical authors list, and that's that melding is one that I really love, and that's really got my interest. And again, you had me at hello in that first paragraph.
Some of the inspiration for getting into this genre specifically was I had someone reach out to me many years ago, another author who was writing in on the category on Amazon is like sea adventures fiction is what they put it in, which sounds like it ought to be pirates or something, but really what it is these books like the Travis McGee series or Randy Wayne Wright does his Doc Ford series, things like that. Writers who are writing this character that we know and love, we've seen 100 times. He's an ex-military guy with special skills, trying to live a quiet, peaceful life on the coast of some island or the coast of Florida, and trouble finds him. And then when trouble finds him, this underdog character who just has to go back to his past, dig in these sort of these special skills that he has to solve the problem, and kind of cowboy up and help whoever's in danger. It's a great premise that can go a lot of ways. Usually the guy lives on a boat. There's a kind of a basic stock character that we start with, but it can go so many different directions that it makes an amazing place to write. That's why when I found these other tropical authors and I said, look, these guys are doing well. They've already got an audience for it. I could do that, but instead of being just boats, I could add seaplanes. I could add aviation to this. So same but different. That's how you want to. That's what readers want. Readers want to read something that they know that they're going to like, but with just a little twist to give it some freshness. And so for me, my premise was I'm basically writing Magnum PI with a plane. That's what I'm writing. And it goes back to, all of us have that in fiction. It goes back a long way, especially as guys. We have this sort of concept of like Superman, who is like this Clark Kent character who is average guy going through his day, trying to be normal, but on the inside, he has something special about him that when challenged, the hero will come out. And that's kind of like a universal fantasy in fiction that we all enjoy watching happen. This hero who being called to show his heroism in an unusual circumstance. So in this case, the superpower that this guy has is that he's a pilot, and he's going to use that skill to, dive into danger and solve problems. So that was a fun twist on it for me.
A lot of times when you're reading an author, there's something that resonates with you, the reader. And one of the things that resonates with all these tropical authors are places I've been, things I've done, and people I've seen. And there's a specific one that's in Punta Gorda that I read often, and it's just absolutely terrific about life on a boat, almost like a pirate, and you get to live that life. And what is really cool about it is that they take parts of that real life scenarios and the real life places and place them in the book where I can actually relate to, which I think is what you've done. With most of your books being based in areas that or are close to you.
Absolutely. And that's one of the most common things I hear from readers, especially local readers who like reading about St. Pete, where the series starts out, because they know the locations, they know the geography of the area. And the people that don't, maybe they've been here once or they've visited, it's enough to kind of pique their interest and make them want to come to St. Pete. And the same way, the opening sentence that you read there from Tropic Descent, which is book 2 of the series, in the Bahamas, a lot of that harkens back to my time flying in the Bahamas as well. Those of us who have been fortunate enough as general aviation pilots or as commercial pilots to fly to the Bahamas know what an amazingly stunning visual place that is. And also the vibe there as a pilot is completely different than the US. It's very relaxed and just chill. It's the kind of paradise you want to fly around in. It's like small planes were made to be over there. It's islands everywhere, airports on most of the islands, if not multiple airports on each of the islands. So I wanted to capture that in the story, and I had a lot of fun kind of going back to those personal experiences I had flying in the Bahamas and then weaving that into a fictional story. I did end up deciding to make a fictional island for the story to take place. It's kind of on the way towards Eleuthera somewhere, and it's based on a real island geographically, like Moore's Island, but I renamed it, named it something completely different, and kind of changed the dynamic of what happens on that island. But he does land in North Eleuthera, which is a real place. He goes down and drops off some hurricane supplies, which is something I've done. I've helped out the Bahamas Methodist Relief down there. Bahamas Methodist Habitat works out of Eleuthera, and they rebuild houses for people that have been, had their places damaged by hurricanes. So a lot of that real life stuff worked its way into the story. And then from that starting point, we just jump off and have a thrilling good time.
So you can actually experience that. And being part of that readership, we get to experience those wonderful life experiences that you've had, but in a fun way, and also in a thrilling way. By the way, that's another part of this, is that just in reading portions of this book, and I haven't read the whole thing yet, it does have some heart-pounding parts of the book, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. It does, and the kind of the format of these stories is they're going to start off with a mystery element, and about halfway through, the mystery is going to turn into a thriller. Something's going to happen. There's going to be another dead body. There's going to be something that happens because in a classic mystery, the sleuth or the detective is not typically in danger. They're not personally involved. They might be, it's Columbo walking through a scene, solving it, but not necessarily ever personally in danger. Whereas in my premise, the Magnum PI with the plane, Magnum PI tended to get in a little bit dirty himself. He would get in the fist fights and the gun fights by the end of the episode. And that's kind of where I wanted to go with this, where it's like you're going to have the mystery element, but somewhere along the way, either the victim is in danger and the hero has to save them, and then therefore the hero becomes in danger themselves. But there's probably going to be some fist fights and, car chases and gun fights by the end. And that's, expected in this genre. And I want to deliver on that. So usually by the end of this, you're going to see some action, sometimes some pretty heavy duty action.
Looking at this from an aviation standpoint, and I know your passion is aviation, and so is writing. Are you finding yourself leaning more towards the writing, or has this actually grown your passion for aviation?
I think that's a great question. And I get that question a lot from the author side, because a lot of people view writing as, they view writing full time as the goal, which for me, it has never been. So there's kind of this idea that if you're a writer, that's all you do. You just write all the time. And I think that for me personally, I would hate that, because I love my aviation job. I love my passion for flying. I love going down to the airport with my dog and taking the plane up, and buzzing over to the Manatee Airport over here is this little grass strip that has a fun Friday morning donut and coffee hangout. So I borrow my friend's Champ lately. I buzz in there and do some tail wheel stuff and go in there and chit chat with the guys and talk airplanes. Like, if I couldn't do that, what would I be writing about? Like, the whole reason I like to write is because I like to incorporate real life experiences. And if you're not out there having the real life experiences, if you're just sitting in your room trying to dream everything up without any basis to go on, the fiction's going to get stale, in my opinion. You have to actually get out and live your life. And in my case, my other job, my aviation job, is part of that. It's part of what feeds me and gets me excited, because I have these sort of two parts of myself. One is the mechanical aviation side, one is the creative outlet. And for me, it's a balance. So my day-to-day work week looks very similar to that. I'm at the airport a couple of days. I'm at the coffee shop or somewhere like that 3 mornings a week. I write usually Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, and do kind of a half-day situation, because by lunchtime, creatively, I'm a little burned out anyway. Like, there's nothing really great coming out of my brain after afternoon. So I may as well be at work doing aviation stuff. And it works out really well. I'm very blessed and fortunate to be able to balance those two things. As a business owner, I own both the businesses myself, so I'm able to make my own hours. And I found a very fortunate way to make that work. And I wouldn't change anything. Every once in a while, I'll switch one morning here or there, write a full day if I'm really feeling inspired. But for the most part, I think I've got it right where I want it.
As you were talking, it's amazing. I was thinking about this. Your aviation is like the colors in your palette, and your canvas being that ability to write, but having that inner desire and the ability to grow with that desire is what truly engages you as the artist and enables you to have those brush strokes onto that canvas with those palettes, and makes us really enjoy that painting that you provide us in your books.
And like you mentioned earlier, the thing that Russ spotted was authenticity. The thing that stuck out to him, and it made it not just another book, was there was something authentic about it that made him sit up and be like, ooh, okay, this is real stuff, something real here. And I want to keep providing that. And I think that was a very important part of writing, especially book 1 in this series, where I went through it kind of with a fine-tooth comb and was like, is there anything in here? Because I don't know if you know it or not, but there's quite a few people on the internet who will argue aviation with you if you want.
Yeah.
You get on a Facebook post about anything, you will see differing, dissenting opinions on a lot of things. So when I went through there, for example, in Tropic Angel, the opening scene to Tropic Angel is that Luke has to emergency land a plane with the gear up. And that's just the opening scene. And it's based on a real life story, which is fun. There's actually a mechanic pilot here at Albert Whitted Airport. His name's Billy Lindbergh. And many years ago, when I first started working at Albert Whitted, like 20 years ago or so, just prior to that, he had emergency landed the Duchess this way, where he had come in, the gear was jammed, wouldn't come down. So he kept him up, brought it in on final, shut down both engines, and then because they were 2-bladed propellers, he used the starters to bump the propellers horizontal. So then when he came in and belly landed and skidded down the runway, the engines never got touched. So there was no sudden stoppage. The props never got touched. He saved 2 entire engines worth of overhauls. That the plane, I think it had a little bit of belly skin damage that needed to be replaced. And then the plane was back up and flying in like 2 weeks. It was an incredible story of just being cool under pressure, and him just having the wherewithal to be like, yeah, I'm on final. I don't need engines, and then just shut those down, and then to, further think about saving the propellers as well, and then just to have the cojones to do that as well. That was just kind of like the epitome of I think what we want to be as pilots, and so that found its way into the story, and but there was as I was writing that scene, I had to, of course, get in the details. I ended up using a Seneca 2 as the plane, and I remember at one point I had selected the wrong type of emergency gear drop, and I had to go back and be, oh wait, this isn't correct. If I look up this model Seneca 2, it's actually a button. It's not a listen. You're not pumping it down. You're like that kind of, because I knew
that level
if I
of
got
detail
it
right.
wrong, I would probably get some angry emails from somebody, and it would throw off their whole experience of the book. If my opening scene, if I got the gear handle extension wrong, they'd be like, no, this guy doesn't know anything. So I was very careful. I think once people get through book one, they're like, okay, we trust him now. Then at some point, they let go of that cringing that we have as pilots, waiting for something to be wrong. And then you can just relax into the story and just have a good time and enjoy yourself. And that's what I really wanted to give pilots the opportunity to do. And it's my gift to the aviation community. Like, you don't have to cringe. You don't have to cringe through this series.
But if we do find something, we can point it out, right? So,
I'm sure you will.
So
I'm
now
sure
you mentioned
will.
Tropic Angel was the first book, right? Did I get the name right? Okay, and you got Tropic Descent. Here's the second book. So 2 books in the series. Can you, I don't know, maybe give us just a little summary of each one? I guess. I mean, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So the fun thing about Luke is that he comes from a family that is a little bit disreputable. I don't know if you know that, but back in the 70s and 80s, St. Petersburg, Florida specifically was a haven for drug planes. There was a lot of smuggling going on. If you went down to Tierra Verde, there would be planes coming in, offloading cocaine from the Colombians. The cops would be there helping to unload the boats. Like there was a lot going on back then. And so it was kind of like, if you have seen American Made with Tom Cruise, that was a great aviation film, kind of that tells the story of Barry Seal in his flying for the CIA plus the Colombians. I wanted some of that vibe in there. So I have Luke's father came from that generation and was this kind of drug smuggler who's currently in prison, but we'll see him eventually. And Luke, trying to escape that past, went off to join the military, became a helicopter pilot, got out, is trying to just make his own way. After his career in the military, owns a little seaplane business, just trying to keep his nose clean, trying to run a good business, and he will continually be kind of dragged back into this past that his family has. So in the book one, we see some of that. We see some of his family relationships with he has an ex-wife who he still has some feelings for. She shows back up. There's some tension there. There's some fun family drama that drags him into trouble, despite him not wanting to be involved. He must pull out his skills and go help, just because it's the kind of man he is. And in the second book, Tropic Descent, we have a fun scene where he and his one of his pilot friends are going over to the Bahamas. This kind of new fresh pilot that he's helping to train, and they spot a plane going down in the water. It's out of control. It's descending, and what's happened is the pilot is incapacitated, and the passengers calling on the radio for Mayday, and it goes down. And because Luke happens to be in a Grumman Mallard, which is an amazing plane, he lands this antique Mallard, dives into the water, saves the girl who is in danger of drowning, and then it kind of unravels this mystery of who is she, why did the plane go down, is someone out to get her, that's what's really behind this. So when he tries to get her to the hospital, and she subsequently goes missing, it turns into something that Luke can't walk away from, and he has to just stay and kind of dig into this mystery. And the more he digs, then the more in danger he becomes personally. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great premise, and I like ideas like that where we would do the same thing. Like if we were flying along and happened to be in a flying boat, if you happen to be in a seaplane and you see a Cessna 182 go down, yeah, you're going to try to help. You're going to land. It's not your fault that this person has problems, but guess what? Now they're your problems, and you're hooked into this situation, and until you resolve it, you're stuck. And that's what I want. I want a page turning adventure where the more involved he gets, the deeper into it he gets, and the harder it is to get out. And then the stakes continue to raise until the very end. And I've had a lot of people reply to me that it's kept them up late reading, that they're staying up past their bedtimes and exhausted for work the next morning because they're so busy glued to these pages, which is the best compliment a writer can ever get. And in the audio version, I'm excited about the audio because it's about to be narrated by Scott Brick, who is a award-winning narrator. He is a Grammy nominee. He's read things like Jurassic Park and Born Identity and Dune. If you look at his bibliography of things that he's narrated, over 900 titles, wow. You'll see everybody from Harlan Coben to David Baldacci, like the Firm is in there, or Ayn Rand, or like if you go back to Raymond Chandler books, he's read everything, it seems like, and he's such a talented guy, and I can't wait for that performance, because I know that's going to rivet people too, especially the audiobook listeners who have been very patiently waiting for this to come out. And now that it's, by the time this episode comes out, that should be available. And I'm so thrilled for people to chime in about the audio experience of this series. So
will that be both books, or is Tropic Angel already out on audio?
No, it took some time because Scott is such a big name. It was challenging getting on his schedule, and he's actually sitting in the booth as we're talking right now. He's recording both of them back to back. So he's just going to be going straight through from one to the next, and I'm going to actually be releasing them simultaneously as sort of a double feature situation.
Wow.
Which, it should be fun. His talent, I've listened to him recently. He's recorded awesome. Blade Runner. Blade Runner was one I don't know if you've read my time travel series, the Private Detective series.
Of course I have.
When I was writing, when I was writing Electric Midnight, I'm sure you saw some of the Blade Runner-esque kind of references to it, where that film, like Blade Runner 2049, especially, where it's a futuristic detective, like that all harkens back to stories like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is Blade Runner, that he narrated. So it's kind of required reading for authors to go back and mine the original material and pay respect to the people that have really carved paths. But that was the first time I ever heard Scott specifically and sat up and noticed of like, wow, what a voice this guy has, what talent. And so ever since I'd heard that book back when I was listening to that, doing research for Electric Midnight, in the back of my head, I thought, you know what, if I ever get the opportunity, if I'm at the point in my career where I have a new series that I could potentially get him, it was worth the wait for me. So even though it's been, a year or so since Tropic Angel has been out, I think having the audio out now and into the future is going to be a really special treat for readers and listeners.
Now, say you touched there on a little bit of your other series. Why don't you kind of walk us through? You have maybe 3 other series of books. Am I counting that right? Somewhere in that range?
I have several. I do, and they're a lot of fun. And typically, what you'll find in all of my books is adventure. You're going to find a little bit of mystery, a little bit of action. The original series that you first discovered, most likely was in Times Like These, and it is very much kind of an homage to Back to the Future, where a group of friends go back to the 1980s, get stuck there, and have to figure out how to get themselves home. And that branches into the next book is called The Chronothon. It's a time travel adventure race where these characters have to race through time in sort of an amazing race kind of competition, where each level of the race is a different time period in history or in the future, which was a lot of fun. And then it kind of expands the world from there, where there's this whole world of time travelers. And then the second series, which is called Paradox PI, revolves around a detective who's actually the main character from In Times Like These, his son. And he has a fun, a little bit dark backstory as well. And he solves mysteries, but via time travel, which is a lot of fun. If you're kind of into that noir detective style, where it's, punchy dialogue and action and, it will fall around a character, again, who's good with his fists, but also has to use his brain and to really get into the weeds about who he's tracking down. I had a great time writing that. And then I have a couple of other series as well. I have Kingdom of Vengeance series, which is basically like what if knights drove muscle cars. It's a kind of a fun premise. So I call it modern medieval, and which is a really fun kind of action adventure, Mad Max meets King Arthur situation. And then the very first book I ever wanted to write and then eventually did write was called Faster Than Falling, which is we talked about, I think, on the last podcast we did. And it was kind of a sky adventure where, what if we all could live in the sky, and what would that adventure be like? And I had a blast writing that as well too. So I've been all over the place. It's just taken me a while to finally narrow it down to this particular track I'm on now. But that's just the struggle of being a creative person, is that sometimes your mind wanders and you got to follow it, see where it goes.
Interestingly, you mentioned about the last episode. By the way, we'll have links to that. That's episode 244. I think that was back in June of 2020. But something that I think a lot of people don't realize, I think as we've been talking, you truly have this amazing passion for aviation. I know we've gotten into this writing part of it, but for those that hadn't heard the last episode, kind of give us a quick review as to how you developed this passion, because I think it's a really cool story.
It was something that I had deep roots with, going back primarily to my grandfather, Morgan, who was a World War II pilot, flew P-38s in Italy, continued to have a long career in the Army Air Corps, flew helicopters, got into the helicopter flying, and flew all through Korea and Vietnam. He was still in. So it was a kind of an interesting era to be a military pilot at that time. He retired as a lieutenant colonel later. And when I was a kid, he would take me to air shows. And I think so many of us, we go to an air show when we're a kid and we just get, it's magnetic. We watch the Thunderbirds, or we watch something happen that really just cements in our mind how cool aviation is. And I mean, what little kid doesn't want to be a pilot when they grow up? So, but he was very encouraging, and he said, if you want to be a pilot when you grow up, be a pilot. Like, if you want to be a baseball player, be a baseball player. He's like, just do whatever you set your mind to, and you can do it. And he was every conversation I ever had with him, always involved. He would end on that. Just do whatever you set your mind to. And, growing up, happened to be near airports a lot. And then one day my parents were, through some sort of connection, they had met a guy who was teaching lessons out of his Cessna 152 in this little small grass strip in Pennsylvania where we happened to be living at the time. And it was a tiny little field, Hanover Airfield. It's no longer there, unfortunately, but, surrounded by corn. And I soloed when I was, 16 years old, right on my birthday. My parents were hiding in the barn, and they came out and took pictures of me as I did my first solo in this little orange and white Cessna 152. And I was hooked. It was, from then on, I, got my private license, got my commercial license. I went to college for a hot second as an art major, interestingly enough, just because I had that creative side burning in me too. But I realized very quickly I wasn't cut out to be a fine artist. And I didn't have quite the artistic skills. I couldn't see myself making a career out of that or making money at that. Because that takes a very particular type of talent to make a career in art. And so I went into a career in aviation. And, it's been great. I became a CFI when I was 19 or 20. I flew a traffic patrol plane for a while. My first commercial job was flying around the beltway of Baltimore, morning and afternoon rush hour traffic in a 172, just, doing circles like a vulture over car accidents. And we, built those hours up. And then eventually I found my way into maintenance because I thought I was going to get into bush flying. And all those bush pilot jobs you have to be a mechanic for. So, but once I kind of stumbled into aviation maintenance, and I realized, hey, here's this amazing career that actually lets you have great hours. And you have it work like a normal 8 to 5. You're around airplanes all the time. I still got to fly because I could, do post-maintenance flights after a 100-hour inspection, things like that. But I could also teach on the evenings and weekends. I was still having a CFI. So I was doing some flying there. And it became this amazing lifestyle where I said, it doesn't matter if it's raining or if my students show up or whatever. The planes are still broken. So there's still something to do. I'm still getting paid, and that was kind of when you're starting out, when you're early on in aviation, you don't realize that, hey, as a flight instructor, if your student doesn't show up, guess who's not getting paid today? And it was tough. It's a tough job trying to earn your stripes a little bit as a pilot. And so maintenance became this great place for me to grow a career. And then, it just happened to be that I started writing books during my 15-minute breaks in the morning or on my lunch breaks. And then eventually, by the time I was director of maintenance, of the maintenance shop. I just took longer lunches and just wrote more, and it all worked out. And I subsequently became a mechanic examiner as well for the FAA and started doing exams for people who want to become aircraft mechanics. And that's a great gig, and I really enjoy being able to see people at the beginning of their careers just stepping into aviation maintenance, and it's a lot of fun watching the industry grow. It's a great time to be a mechanic for anyone who's interested in becoming a mechanic or a pilot right now. The aviation industry is booming, so it's a lot of fun watching people step off into this career, and it's a great view from where I'm at.
So you're running a business. It's a maintenance shop. Mm-hmm. You also do exams for maintenance. But how about all flying? Are you do exams for flying also?
I don't. Yeah, no, I'm not a pilot examiner, and I don't know. I think the FAA likes to keep those separate. And I'm honestly, I'm so busy as a mechanic examiner that I don't think I could even fit that into my schedule if I wanted to as a pilot examiner. I think we are in need of some pilot examiners in the area, but I have some very qualified friends who I think might be applying, some other instructors I've known for years, and people who could do a better job of it than me, honestly. I do fly a fair amount. Tomorrow, we're actually hopping in the plane and flying up to Jacksonville for our annual family trip with my wife's family. She has some family up near Jack's Beach area in Ponte Vedra, and we go visit them for the 4th of July weekend. So that's our fun thing to buzz up and do. And I have a Cessna 172. I have a straight tail 1957.
Cool.
172, and I buzz around in that. Like I said, I have a friend who has recently been loaning me her Champ. She has a 58 Aeronca Champ, which is beautiful. It's been a lot of fun to buzz around in that. And I'll do the occasional flight review for somebody as I keep my instructor license current, but I don't fly commercially much anymore. It's for money. It's mostly recreational at this point.
Yeah, and that actually is an incredible magic carpet that you have there, that 172, because especially where you are, I mean, people fly to where you are. I mean, that's at Albert Wooded Airport in St. Pete, Florida, because it's an amazing airport, great restaurant. But you're now flying away to see all these other amazing places, and when you come home, it must feel like a vacation again when you fly home.
I love seeing Albert Wooded Airport out the window. I don't know how long we'll have the Tropicana Field dome currently as the landmark that we look at, but you can spot that thing from 30, 50 miles out, depending on the visibility that day. People are like, well, have you got Wooded in sight? I'm like, well, I see the Trop. So it's right there. And it's a really great place to come home to. Tampa Bay in general is a beautiful area to learn to fly. We have a lot of great airports around here, but Wooded in particular has so much history. It has, like you said, the restaurants, and I finally got my own little hangar there and my own little space, and I love going to work every day. I love that community, the people that are there. A lot of them are the same people that have been there for the whole 20 years I've been there. So it's a very family feel to it. It feels like a family when you go down to Wooded. And that's the kind of thing that we love about general aviation. That's why we get into it, is because we don't want to just have a massive commercial experience. We want to go down and fly our plane for fun. Like, airports aren't a place you go to have a bad time, and you don't have a bad time at Wooded, that's for sure. So I really enjoy being based there. And I used to be a bit of a rolling stone when I was young, where I moved a lot. New England, I came from California originally, lived in Pennsylvania, kind of up and down the southeast. I went to flight school in the Carolinas. But when I finally landed at Wooded, I was like, whoops, well, now I'm stuck because I love it so much that I can't imagine ever finding another airport that I would love as much as this one. I just can't do it. So unless maybe if I get a house on a fly-in runway somewhere, when I'm older, who knows? Maybe you can talk me into that. But it's a great place.
Absolutely is. And, there's nothing like coming home to an airport that's close to home. It's almost like having a runway in your backyard, almost. And then just being in such a beautiful place is just phenomenal. And they have so much to offer there. And that's the thing that general aviation does for you. It really opens up the world. And what's really cool is you've actually opened up people's minds in another world to other adventures through your writing. You really have a charmed life. I mean, I do.
Yeah, I feel very blessed, very fortunate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we'd love to come down and say hello sometime at Albert Whitted. If anybody sees Nate there at Albert Whitted, say hello. I'm sure sometimes you'll be hanging out at the Hangar restaurant there. But speaking of where to find you, how can they find you online as far as the books are concerned and everything else that you do?
So my last name is 2 words. It's VAN space capital COOPS, Van Coops. And I'm the only Nate Van Coops there is, so I'm super easy to find. You can find me on Facebook, on my website. You can go to nathanvancoops.com or nathanvancoops.com, either one. We'll get you there. You can send me an email. It's nathan@nathanvancoops.com. And I'm on a lot of the social media, TikTok, Instagram, that sort of thing. And, of course, at Whitted, I'm there frequently. So if you want to come find me in person, there may be some events coming up soon where I might actually be out and about. I know the Friends of Albert Whitted have been talking about doing some sort of book events soon. So there's opportunities out there. But I am very easy to find. The best place to find my books is on Amazon. Just type in either Nate Van Coops or type in Tropic Angel, which is the first book of the series. And or if you can also join the Tropical Authors Group, which is great. There's a lot of other good books. When you burn through mine, because they're pretty quick, then you can find your way over to the Tropic Authors and enjoy some of those other guys. And they've got some great writing.
Yeah, you're next on my list on the Tropical Authors, by the way, after I finish this other one I'm doing.
So, Nate, I enjoyed Tropic Angel. I enjoyed Tropic Descent. When is Tropic Ascent, or whatever you've decided to call the next one, coming out?
I've got 2 potential titles right now, and I haven't chosen the final. I'm kind of waiting to see how they look on a cover before I decide what the next book will be called. But I am starting working on it. I'm working my way through the plotting right now, outlining. So I usually put out 1 book a year, or sometimes a little bit faster if I can get them out. I realize that I have to put my books out before May, before my kids go on summer break. I have small kids, so not much gets done during the summer camp season. So I try to get a book out at least by the spring, by May of 2025. Be on the lookout for the next one if you haven't seen it by then.
Are you only working on the Tropic series now, or are you plan on doing more with the other series, or how's it looking for the future?
I think I'd like to do 4 or 5 in this series, just back to back if I can, and then see how that shakes out, because I think that's really kind of a magic number when it comes to book series. Like, you can really tell the health of a series if you've got 4 or 5 of them in there. And then after that, I might go back to writing. I think I've got at least one more time travel book in my arsenal. I've got this bouncing around in my head, this plot, this Ben Travers, kind of Grayson Travers mashup book that I think is going to happen eventually. And I'd love to add on to some of the other series as well, but we'll just have to see what happens. There's definitely at least one more time travel book for you. But
I appreciate it. Yeah, there's only so many hours in a day, right? Yeah. And I think you said in Tropic Descent, you wish you could write books as fast as your readers read them, something like that in your acknowledgement. Yeah. So yeah, we appreciate your efforts in putting this kind of thing out, and I know I've enjoyed the books I've read. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you as a reader.
Glad to be.
Both of you. Soon to be both of you.
Soon, yeah. I just started, so I'm very excited. Nate, interestingly, you mentioned this before, and I'm not sure you completely answered this, or maybe we didn't ask this. Let's say things really went well in writing, and would you hang up the flying, or as far as from a professional standpoint, if there was this shift to being able to support yourself in the writing world? And you may not be able to answer that question, but
those memes that you see going around where it says, if I ever won the lottery, I wouldn't tell anyone, but there would be signs. I think you might see a seaplane sitting there. You might see. I think that the toys might get more expensive, but I think that the aviation aspect won't go away. I just may acquire different aircraft to buzz around
and incorporate it into your books, right? Yes, yes,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all part of research. You really have to. I've actually got some plans. I've got some plans to head over to Central Florida to do a little bit more seaplane flying soon, and I'd love to get out west to do some of this. Bush flying they do, these like big tire pilots, these guys that fly on mountaintops and land in crazy places. And I have a plan to head up to Alaska at some point to do some bush flying up there too, all for research purposes, because why not? Luke Angel can go anywhere. So I'm going to have to go do some fun flying along the way to make sure I keep it authentic.
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, Nate, this has been awesome having you on. I really appreciate you coming on. And it's always wonderful listening to you because you're so energetic and you love flying. You have a passion for writing. And I love the fact that you're willing to share both of those with everybody that's surrounding you within an earshot or, a readership. And one of the things that I think is just really cool about Nate is that he's constantly expanding himself and trying to make himself better as a pilot and as a writer. And, I think we all can learn from Nate is that, don't let things just stop here. Try to keep making yourself a better pilot and a better person, no matter what it is you do. And flying, I mean, it's always this elusive, perfect landing, perfect flight that we're looking for. And that's what we should, aspire to do. Nate, I really appreciate you coming here, and I definitely can't wait to see the next book come out, and I can't wait to get diving in, finish this book that I just started.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, Carl.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Nate.
Russ. Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, folks, if you're listening right now, just like I said, and if you're in aviation or anything else, the most important thing I think you should do is to try to keep expanding your knowledge and your skills. And you can do that simply by just getting out to the airport and going to fly. And by the way, if you want to come visit us, we're here at the Aero Center here in Lakeland, Florida. We have it on our website, stuckmikeavcast.com/contact. And we have actually parking instructions. So if you want a taxi over here, do text us or email us and let us know if you're going to stop by and say hi. We'd love to have you, give you a tour of the studio and the wonderful hangar that we have here with all the different really cool old airplanes, new airplanes, and jets, all sorts of different planes that are in the hangar, just like at Albert Woodward. But the most important thing you do for me is to keep expressing yourself in the aviation world by either reading or by trying to make yourself a better pilot. But try to do something today to really expand your knowledge and your flying skills. We'll talk to you next episode. Safe flying out there.